Dr. Mais, thank you for coming in. For those people that don't know who you are, what you do, you were a GP initially, and you still are a GP, but your career has kind of changed a little bit, I guess. Let us know what your journey's been like and where you are now.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to talk about my favorite topic, definitely, and I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Dr. Mais Hussein, and I became a doctor 15 years ago. And I actually started to become passionate and interested in the obesity management world way before I became an obesity specialist. And that's when I decided to do a master's degree in nutrition and dietetics back in 2015, when I quickly realized the huge gap that we have between medicine and lifestyle interventions. Back then, we didn't have a lot of promising solutions, but the exciting news that is that it's changing. And we're now dealing with a lot of solutions that are fascinating, and the future is just so promising with all the research that's coming. So then I finished my GP training, and then I specialized specifically in obesity management. I still wear the two hats, so I am a GP on some days, managing obesity as part of my job, but I'm more specialized in medical assisted weight loss with holistic approach, where we use science, nutrition, and medication at the same time when needed.
So it's a holistic approach, which is very different to what we see commonly with the prescription of this medication.
Yes.
What do you mean exactly by a holistic approach?
When we talk about obesity, we now gave it an identity. So obesity is a chronic, complex disease, and the WHO has given it actually a definition, which is very exciting. When you give something an identity, you actually deal with it in a more structured way. So it's a chronic, progressive, relapsing, multifactorial disease.
Yep.
Each component of that definition has a lot of meaning. And I do explain to my patients all these components so that they understand the physiology and the biology behind it. And that's when you actually treat it holistically. And when I talk about holistic approach, when it's a complex disease, you can't just treat it with one tool. There's a lot of things that you need to consider. There are intrinsic factors that you cannot control, and some of the intrinsic factors that you can control, and there are a lot of extrinsic factors that, again, some of them you can control and some of them you cannot control. So we focus on what we can control and try to improve, and then probably that will in turn fix the things that you can't control indirectly. So holistically means basically involving multiple teams and multiple modalities, and it's a long-term management plan.
That's really important, long-term management plan, because you mentioned that it's a relapsing disease as well.
Exactly.
And what I see is a lot of people will come in, they'll take this medication, they'll reach a point where they've lost quite a bit of weight, but then they'll stop the medication for whatever reason and the weight will just come back on. And so I'm assuming you involve other practitioners, like maybe dietitians.
100%, very accurate what you just mentioned. I do involve a lot of allied health practitioners and also specialists in the management of my obese patients. It depends how complex the patient is, because each patient is an individual case on its own. And some patients with obesity have a lot of knowledge. They're highly educated.
Well, especially this day and age, everything's online.
They're exposed to a lot of information, but the trick is there's a lot of misconceptions at the same time. So it is, at the end of the day, our role to deliver the science behind the obesity management in a language that the patient can understand and can apply in the real sense. We cannot just talk about theory and not teach the patient how to apply it in their actual life, day-to-day life, because at the end of the day, they're human beings that we're dealing with specific biology that's similar to everyone else. Some patients with obesity think that they have a broken biology, and it's not true. You're not different from any other human being with certain hormonal disruptions that we can work with and not against, so that you can achieve your goals, which might be goals beyond the number on the scale. It can be a lot of other things, and that depends on the patient.
Well, this is a big reason why we started this whole podcast in the first place. There's so much misinformation out there when it comes to health, wellness, medicine, and so people can be confused with all this information online. And it's good to see people like you doing this and filtering out some of the noise for them and telling them what's right and what's wrong and how they can address it and use it within their own lives as well.
100%.
So my understanding, there are a few big players when it comes to weight loss medication. Ozempic, that's not around much anymore, is it?
It is.
Oh, it is. It's still being used?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is still used. So basically, with those medications, they all almost belong to the same family.
Yeah.
And they almost all act in the same fashion with just minor differences. Not talking about specifics of each medication and the differences, they all work on satiety centers.
So they suppress
the appetite
to an extent. Yeah.
But they do much more.
Okay.
And the beautiful thing about these medications is that research is coming, and we have a huge space in the research where it's proven that those medications can do much, much more than just losing weight. It is approved for weight loss, but it's getting approved for other indications as well. Things like sleep apnea, fatty liver disease, cardiovascular protection.
Yeah.
It is actually indicated for those reasons in obese patients to protect the heart, to protect the liver, to resolve sleep apnea, where the quality of life is compromised when a patient has sleep apnea. But going back to the mechanism of action of those medications, they act on several centers.
Yeah.
And just to keep it simple for the audience to understand, they act on the brain and they suppress appetite. So you physically feel full when you're eating. And it is a GLP-1 medication. That's the family, the name of the family, with minor differences where some medications have another incretin in it, so another hormone, some of them with dual, some of them with triple hormones. But the main family, it acts centrally on the brain to suppress your appetite. And it's a natural hormone that we all have. So you have the GLP-1 hormone even if you're not on the medication.
Yes.
The problem with obesity, that the disruption and in the regulation and the function of this hormone led to, let's say, loss of communication between the patient and their signals of satiety. So an obese patient comes to me and tells me, we're eating and we can't feel full. Like we eat and I'm hungry too soon.
And that's because of a dysregulation between the hormone.
Exactly. And the centers in the brain,
yeah.
with a lot of other complexities on the sides, things like insulin resistance, things like adipose tissue or fatty tissue being inflammatory tissue, secreting a lot of chemicals. So there's a lot of chemical disruption in the disease of obesity that will lead to, let's say, interruption in the signals of satiety. So GLP-1 hormones are naturally secreted in the body, but they live for too short. When you give an exogenous GLP-1 hormone that lives for a week, in the case of most of the medications these days, it's a weekly injection, that gives you appetite suppression for a longer time, and you will eat less because you will get fuller sooner.
Is that causing reliance on the medication though?
It's not an addictive medication, so it doesn't cause reliance, because these medications are not going to work its magic on its own if you're not doing the hard work on the side.
Yeah.
It is the door to the journey, but you still have to go through the door with good habits, exercise, nutrition. So it doesn't replace it. What it does is, when it's fixing all those disruptions gradually, it's making those habits work better.
Yes.
That's exactly what it does. So on its own, it's not magic. It's just a tool that we use for those patients who've tried for years and their numbers are just rising. And that's real, because we can see the numbers. It's disastrous.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to when we see a patient for an injury. The tool is us treating them hands-on and manual therapy. But then if they're not doing rehab or they're not doing exercise, then it's just a cycle where they feel better, they come back a few weeks later, and they've got the same issue over and over.
100%. A patient with diabetes or hypertension or high cholesterol levels, if you're giving them a medication, they can probably couple it with lifestyle interventions. But if they don't, when you stop the medication, the root cause is still there, and they're going to have their blood pressure high up again, the diabetes uncontrolled, and so on and so forth. It is very similar when you treat any other chronic disease. Yes. In fact, it's much more complex. Because when you're treating obesity, you're at least treating another 20 conditions.
And there's a lot of psychology involved, I imagine,
100%.
as well. Yeah.
A lot of patients with mental health issues, they're suffering from obesity as well. either because of the emotional aspect of it or because of the medications that they're on, which is causing more insulin resistance or more hormonal disruptions, and also the emotional eating that comes with it, the psychological.
It's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle. So you have to start somewhere, and when medication is indicated, then it's indicated. It's not for everyone, but it is one of the strong tools that we use to break that cycle.
Yes. So there's Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy.
Yes.
I've heard of another one called Retatrutide.
It's not in the market yet.
It's not on the market yet.
It's not?
But honestly, every second person that comes in that's either training a lot or wanting to lose weight has mentioned it to me downstairs as a patient.
It is coming.
Yeah. What
However,
are your thoughts on Retatrutide?
Look, when I talk to my patients, I do explain to them that my goal is not to make you lose the number on the scale as quickly as possible. I can do that if you desire that, but I'm going to be doing a lot of harm in your body, because we know that almost 40% of your body weight, when you drop it, whether with medication, with no medication, with keto diet, with fasting, 40% of your weight is going to come off lean mass, so muscle.
Yes.
And that's a true thing that we need to keep in mind, because I want you to lose the fat, but I don't want you to lose the muscle.
Muscle's very important.
It's a longevity organ.
Yep.
It's an anti-inflammatory organ.
Yes.
It's the organ that's gonna determine your quality of life when you're an elderly. It's what's gonna prevent you from having that fracture if you have a fall when you're 80.
Yep.
So if I start talking about muscle, I'm not gonna stop. Like it's just
same. Yeah.
Muscle is one of the most important things that we talk about in menopause, in elderly patients.
The elderly, yep.
So when you're losing weight and losing muscle at the same time, I don't think that I am winning by doing that. However, I do want you to lose the fat, which is an inflammatory organ. Now, if we couple the weight loss with certain exercise or certain measures, we'll minimize the weight loss that comes off the lean mass. Namely, resistance training, high protein diet, and doing it slowly. So the number, the 40% that I've just mentioned, can go down to 10%. So for each 10 kilos that you lose on the scale, instead of 4 kilos coming off the muscle, it's going to be 1 kilogram that's coming off the muscle if you couple it with resistance training, structured resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, along with a high protein diet. There are certain calculations and numbers for each patient, but I roughly say around 90 to 100 grams of protein a day.
For male and female, or dependent?
It depends. Like I can give specifics to some patients, but in general, with those appetite suppressing medications, it might be challenging to have more. But if you want to just maintain the muscle that you have and not lose any, or lose just the minimum amount of muscle, then 100 grams of protein is reasonable.
Sufficient. Okay.
And on top of that, doing it slowly.
Yep.
So when a patient comes to me and say, I need to lose 20 kilos by the end of the year, we talk about that. We just sit down and we put the goals on the table, and we talk about how it's more harmful for you if you lose that much. It's not going to be, you're not going to look good. If your goal to look good, you're just going to look smaller. It's like a balloon that's deflated.
Yeah.
But you don't want that. You want to do some body recomposition. You want to gain the muscle. You want to tone up.
Yes.
So doing it slowly and gradually is key.
Are there any moments where you won't prescribe a medication to a patient?
Yes, of course.
Because I can imagine a lot of people will come in wanting to lose weight where they probably don't need to lose weight.
Yes. There are specific and clear guidelines and indications for those medications. You can prescribe it to anyone. And the main determining measure is BMI, which is not a very accurate way to judge or diagnose patients with obesity, but it is what it is. So we classify patients according to BMI, and they qualify for the medication if they have a BMI of 27 to 30 with at least one obesity-related condition. That can be PCOS, infertility, osteoarthritis, diabetes, cholesterol, hypertension. It can be something like back pain or stuff like that. So this is at least one comorbidity.
Yeah.
Or if the BMI is 30 and above, whether they have a comorbidity or not, they qualify for the medication.
Okay.
However, there's a lot of flexibility in the real sense, in the real world. I'm not going to deprive someone whose BMI is 29.8 with no comorbidities only because I think that they don't qualify for the medication.
Yeah.
So the guidelines are clear and we do follow the guidelines. However, some patients, when you ask them questions and when you take a full history, they've actually tried everything. And they have a good knowledge and good willpower. Willpower is something that we need to talk about probably.
Yes.
And their body is just not moving with them. It's moving against them. It's fighting back. They're losing the weight and then they're regaining the weight.
Why does that happen though? Because that's quite common, especially with females. They come in and they say, I used to be able to drop weight very easily in my 20s and now I'm 30 or 40 years old. I've had a few kids, for example, and I do everything, I've tried everything and I can't drop the weight.
And it's much harder.
And
Absolutely.
It's much harder, yeah.
It's just normal biology. It's true. I see it every single day with my patients. The biology behind it is that as we age, we lose muscle. This is one thing, male or female. Females probably lose muscle at a higher rate than males. But the other thing is that also hormones are not helping. So estrogen is dropping, muscle is dropping, metabolism is slower. So yes, they're eating the same thing. They're probably doing the same activity, more or not, because as we age, we tend to do less, probably, with stress, with busy lifestyle, with responsibilities. So they're eating the same amount of calories, but their body is not dealing with that amount of calorie the same way. Their fat storage capacity is higher because of the slower metabolism. But it doesn't mean that it's broken. It doesn't mean that it's damaged forever. They can actually restore the muscle and they can make their metabolism stronger again.
How do they do that?
Again, with doing the lifestyle habits that promote weight loss, but at the same time, muscle maintenance or muscle building. And it's as simple as doing resistance training and not focusing too much on the cardio exercise. Cardio is important still. Upping their protein intake.
Yeah.
The average protein intake in an average person in the population is 30 grams daily.
Oh, that's the average.
That's nothing.
Yeah, wow, that's very low.
It's very low.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of patients who come to me. They're like, I don't like chicken. I don't like meat. I eat eggs though.
Yeah.
How many eggs do you eat? Maybe one a day, 3 times a week. So they think that they're having enough protein while they don't have the knowledge that one egg has only 6 grams of protein. So even if you eat 3 eggs in one meal, you're not having enough protein that's recommended for one meal, which is the average of 25 to 30 grams of protein.
Yes.
So I always say, Sam, knowledge is power. If you have the knowledge, you're going to navigate the biology and you're going to know the science behind it. You're going to be working with your body and not against it. Another reason why we tend to regain the weight and as we age also, weight loss is much more resisted and probably slowed down is because there are compensatory mechanisms in the body that will slow the metabolism. Every time you lose weight, those compensatory mechanisms will be alarmed. Are you starving? They want to protect you. So those compensatory mechanisms are designed to protect us from starvation. So metabolism slows down, hunger increases because the hormones are disrupted.
Yep.
Probably activity is lost. You don't have enough. You don't have enough energy to move more. Exercise is compromised. Muscle mass starts to break down. You're not giving it enough fuel to be built, and that's when you end up at the end of the diet with a slower metabolism. So the next time, and then the weight starts to creep up again. The next time you start to drop or to do a diet. You're not starting from a metabolism that was here. You're starting from a metabolism that was here. And it's much, much harder to try again. With the medications going into the equation, if the patient qualifies for it, those compensatory mechanisms are shut down because we're controlling the hunger. The patient is more likely to sustain the diet for a longer time. And at the same time, those hormones are making that steady decrease in weight much more achievable and much more sustainable because we're fixing also the inflammation, we're fixing insulin sensitivity, we're working on the reward system in the brain. There's a lot going on when you're using those incretins to fix stuff that have been damaged in the past. So moral of the story is medications are tools, but they're good tools and we need to know how to use it.
That's interesting. I'm glad you touched on like the resistance training and the importance of resistance training, the diet factor as well, because I feel like that's what a lot of people are missing. They're taking this medication and they're solely relying on the medication, potentially also because there is a lack of education from the people that are prescribing it, unfortunately. And your goal, I guess, is to change all of that.
I wish.
Yeah.
I would love to have that job if someone allows me to try and change the policies and everything. I think my ultimate dream is to treat obesity the same way we treat any other disease, and obesity specialty in medicine as any other specialty. So in my opinion, we should have clinics named as obesity management clinics, similar to cardiology clinics, dermatology clinics. And if we have that, we're going to have everything under the same roof. So we'll have that multidisciplinary team of GPs,
Yes.
specialists, endocrinologists, dietitians,
Exercise
physiologists, physiotherapists and chiropractors. We'll have also psychologists
Yes.
that play a major role in changing the mindset and treating the emotional aspect of obesity, which is huge.
So why is obesity so prominent then? And like, we're seeing it more and more these days. Are we heading like towards a future where to treat obesity, you have to be on medication? Because it seems like there's more and more people that are qualifying for these.
My answer to that question would simply be probably, because I call it a pandemic, and it is a pandemic that's causing a lot of mortality and disability and burden on the whole world. And the thing that the problem with obesity is that it's actually increasing in the poorer populations, in the Western countries specifically. So if you look at the distribution of obesity in any Western country, you would find that the poor community are much, let's say, fatter. I don't like to use the word fat, but they're fatter than the rich community.
Processed foods and
Exactly.
takeaway and
accessibility, food accessibility and
Convenience.
convenience, time. They need to work 12 hours a day.
Yes.
And on top of that, they have kids. They have the stressful life that we all know about. And on top of that, they can't afford those medications. They can only afford the convenience, the convenient options, where in the richer communities, they have more access to fresh food, to a healthier lifestyle, probably to proper gyms and education and advice. So this is where we need to focus at a community level, at a government level, where we're pushing too hard that those medications, they actually work, and we need to make it more accessible to patients.
will that happen though? Well, do you think they'll bring the price down of these medications?
It's coming, and I think there's a lot of pressures happening to make those medications cheaper by doing more research to be approved for more indications. And once probably we have more interest and more indications and more evidence that these medications can actually lower the financial and the economical burden on the country, I imagine that in the near future, hopefully, I'm hoping, it's going to be cheaper, and a lot of patients will be accessing those medications more often. However, talking about the financial aspect of this, I always talk to my patients that it is an investment in your health.
Yeah.
So even looking at the price tag of it, you're going to pay that price later on in life if you don't do something about it now. So it's just it's a delayed cost.
Yeah.
So it's your decision. This is the science. I think that you're eligible for the medication. I think that you qualify for it. I think that it's going to change your life. But at the end of the day, it's a conversation between the healthcare provider and the patient, and it needs time. It needs sensitivity. It needs consideration. It needs to make the patient heard. And this is why we are lacking that in the healthcare system, with the lack of time, the lack of education, the lack of knowledge. And hopefully one day we're going to tackle all these issues and get it solved.
It is a big problem, isn't it?
Huge.
Doctors are they're running short on time. There's a lot expected from them in a short space of time when a patient comes in. I don't know, look, I might be naive to it all, but I think the only way to solve it is to start extending the consult times, but then charging a little bit more on top of that.
That's one solution.
Yep.
But if you absolutely can't do that, you can just probably do more frequent consultations, ask the patients to come back,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to happen all at the same time.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I don't usually prescribe those medications from the first consultation. I actually send the patient back. I do tell them and convince them that you've already started your journey by coming and seeing me today.
That's the first step.
That's the first step. I congratulate them that we've opened this conversation. And it's sometimes the patient opening up the topic or the conversation, and it's sometimes me prompting them to open the conversation. And more likely than not, patients want to talk about it. But they've been associated with a lot of judgment and stigma in the past where they're shy to open up the topic. They're in denial. They don't want to talk about it. They think that they've tried everything and they think that they're failing. And they think that it's them to be blamed, and they think that the GP or the doctor will look at them with shame and blame. So we need to break all these stigma around it, so the patients have not just access to medications, but access to healthcare providers who actually care.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I say this all the time. Whether you're a GP or an allied health professional, it's becoming harder and harder, I think, which is unfortunate, to find somebody that actually cares about your overall well-being and not just the monetary figure that's associated with the consult.
100%.
Do you see more females or males coming into the clinic for this?
I see a mix of both, actually. I think obesity is more common in females, just given the biology of the female going through pregnancy, going through all the hormonal changes of menopause. I do see it more often in females, but I do see a lot of males who are not in denial, as you would expect. It's I don't want to be judging males for that, but males tend to be a little bit more comfortable with their weight when it's creeping up.
Yes.
And I think it's also all about the body image that we have been exposed to, where ladies have to be, skinny.
Expectations.
There's a lot of expectations and pressures on them. If they have an occasion, they need to look their best.
Yeah.
While, males, they just show up. And
we throw a suit on and we're...
Exactly. That's it. So we do touch on those human aspects of things. I do talk to my patients as if they're my friends.
Yes.
And when they hear those things, they're like, finally, someone's talking about things that actually hit home and it relates. Tell me.
Yeah, I've got a question on that note. Like with females, and we hear this all the time, we kind of touched on it previously, but in terms of menopause and metabolism, there are a lot of misconceptions out there. Is there a correlation between menopause and the slowing down of metabolism?
Absolutely. And it's the same foundation of things where they are losing muscle and their hormones are making them a bit more emotional, stressed, probably the poor sleep, the stress, the hot flashes, all the uncomfortable symptoms that come with menopause. They're less focused on the important stuff and they don't have enough energy and time to do things properly. But with gradual introduction of, again, resistance training and muscle building strategies, fixing their diet in a certain way without any restrictions or any extreme dieting, because if you're going on an extreme diet, you're going to do more damage. We don't want them to be eating. I've seen ladies who are living on an 800 calorie diet every day for years.
Yeah.
That's damaging to your metabolism. You can't be doing that. You have to give your body enough fuel to be building the right things and losing the things that we don't want. So menopause is a big thing, and yes, it's an age where ladies, maybe they have a waking up call that they need to do something in their lives. It doesn't kill metabolism. It's not too late to start something when you're 40. It's not too late to start doing something when you're 50, even 60. You can still do something to fix your metabolism. And with weight loss specifically, we now know that the tiniest amount of weight loss can result in a lot of health gains. So if you're someone who needs to lose, let's say, 30 kilograms, you don't have to lose the whole 30 kilograms to benefit from all the health gains that we can talk about in terms of reducing inflammation, improving sleep, improving joint pain, improving your mood and the way you look. Energy, everything. It's a vicious cycle where you can just kickstart that process, whether with medication or not. And that depends on the patient and the conversation that we have. And then once that habit is formed, they can navigate on their own with minor interventions from their healthcare providers. But it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes months and sometimes years.
And sometimes that's the hard part of explaining to a patient when they want the quick fix. But on the note of like 800 calories,
Yes.
you could kind of classify that as disordered eating, I guess, in a sense. Could you say the same thing about the medications that are being introduced? Because essentially they're doing the same thing, aren't they, really, when you think about it? So if somebody's restricting their calories without medication, it's often, I guess, classified as disordered eating. If they're taking medication, they're suppressing their appetite as well.
With the medication, we do still recommend them to eat a reasonable diet in a calorie deficit that's not too high. And my approach with my patient is that I want to put you on the lowest dose possible with the highest amount of calories possible for you to be in a calorie deficit, for you to sustainably lose weight for the longest time possible before we escalate the medication to the next dose.
How much of a reduction in calorie intake would somebody expect to be on initially when they start them?
So on average, we put them somewhere between 15 to 1700 calories,
Okay.
if they can manage eating that much. But the medication is not just restricting calories. That's the beauty of it. We're not just talking about calories. Calories are still the most important things. I always talk about calories all the time. And it is about calories in and calories out.
Yeah.
However, you can control the calories in, but you cannot control how your body reacts to those calories and how it processes it in terms of energy storage. And that's the calorie out. So calories in is measurable and you can control it. Calories out is very variable. So you can be someone who eats 2,000 calories and still it's your maintenance, you don't lose weight, you don't gain weight. And you can be someone who eats 800 calories and that's your maintenance. So if you're eating 1,000 calories, you'll be gaining weight.
Yeah.
But that's the damaged metabolism that we've talked about,
Yes.
from long-term dieting, from the genetics, from the environment, all the factors that contributed to that. But to answer your question about whether the medications are considered disordered eating, the goal is not to suppress your appetite completely to the level where you are not fueling your body with calories.
Or at a dangerous level.
100%.
Yeah.
I've seen patients who started on a medication on a higher doses from the get-go, and it completely killed their appetite. They ended up in hospital. That's not my goal. I want you to still enjoy food.
Yeah.
And I want you to still have some sort of hunger where you can communicate with in a much controlled way. I don't want you to have that extreme hunger where you open the pantry and you just grab anything and everything that you can see. I want you to take that pause, which I call it the mindful pause, look at the pantry or look at the fridge and say, okay, I can plan a decent meal in the next 15 minutes and enjoy it. I don't have that extreme desire to devour and to eat everything in the fridge.
Yep.
And that's what the medication is doing. It's controlling that noise in the brain. It's controlling the urge to eat. It's controlling the symptom of hunger. So obesity does come with a lot of symptoms, and one of the major ones is extreme hunger.
Yep.
And I do describe it in an example. When if someone who doesn't have the disease of obesity is looking at a jar of cookies, for example, they're going to be craving some sugar. That's normal. That's normal craving behavior, or that's normal hunger that anyone can have. And they can reach that cookie and eat it. Maybe they find it very good and they reach for the second cookie and eat it. And that's it. They're satisfied. They move on. Maybe the next day they're going to have that same amount of cookies and they're happy. They don't gain weight. They curbed that craving and they moved on. An obese patient will look at the jar of cookie differently.
Yep.
Their symptoms and their perception of food is different. And it's not them deciding to be like that. It's not a lack of willpower. They have the symptoms of obesity that will make them finish the jar of cookies and probably feeling the guilt after because they couldn't control themselves. But it's not lack of willpower. It's their hormones making them hungrier, making them having that food noise that if I don't finish the full jar, then there's something wrong. I'll start tomorrow.
Yep.
I'll finish it tonight and then I'll start tomorrow. But the other person, they just took a couple of cookies and they can come tomorrow and find the jar of cookies and have the same amount. So these are the psychological and the hormonal differences in the symptoms expressed in an obese patient.
So they really can't control themselves some of the time.
Some of the patients, they can't control themselves. And they think that it's a character flaw or it's a moral failure or that they're failing. Most of my patients, I'm going to tell you this fact, most of my obese patients are highly functional, highly successful people who have businesses, they're running, their careers are very successful. They're fantastic dads. They're fantastic husbands. So we left all that success and we just focused on the failure in obesity. I don't think it's a matter of willpower anymore.
Mm-hmm. So what happens when they get off this medication? Is the goal eventually to take them off the medication?
The goal is to, the goal of the clinician will be different than the patient's goal. So the goal is to prevent the complications of obesity that can eventually kill you. That's my goal that I think about, not necessarily talk about when I see an obese patient. So whether that means that you're going to be on the medication for life, it doesn't bother me. These medications have proven to be safe to be taken long term.
That was my next question. Is it safe to take them?
It's proven that it's safe to be taken long term. Similar to any diabetes medication where patients are expected to take it long term.
That's a good point, yeah.
So those medications have been used for ages, for more than 15 years now. So the first medication that was prescribed as a GLP-1 medication in Australia was prescribed around the 2008, 2009. But it was used as a diabetes medication that time. So we have a lot of evidence, we have a lot of data on the safety of those medications to be used long term. If the patient comes off the medication, the studies have shown that they're going to be regaining some of the weight. Whether all of the weight or some of the weight, it depends on what they're doing on the side. But my approach to my patients who are hesitant to accept the fact that they're going to be on those medications, whether due to the financial burden or to just the fact that they don't want to be on a medication for a long time, I do mention to them that let's try for 6 months or maybe 12 months. Depends on how the patient is resisting. And then in the 6 months, we need to be intensively targeting the lifestyle behaviors. So all the things that they need to do on the side are becoming habits.
Yes.
So when we have that conversation later on, 6 months or 12 months down the track, they know exactly what they're doing. They're more comfortable doing exercise. They saw the benefits of losing the weight. Some of them, they come to me and they're like, I know that I was resisting staying on the medication for life, but now I think I'm just going to stay on it. I love it. It's changed my life. And some of them would tell me that I'm going to just de-escalate the dose and eventually stop it and see how I go.
Okay.
But because they've seen the benefits, it's less hard for me to convince them to go on it again if they fall off track.
So they'll get to the maximum dose, I guess.
Yes.
And then they'll stay there.
That's
assuming.
true.
Yep.
That's true. In the practical world, they don't have to reach the maximum dose. Some of my patients, when they're doing all the boxes that we tick,
they don't need to get
to the maximum dose, and that will save them a lot of money. But we do recommend them at least to, it depends on the medication. There are medications that are different. Some medications are recommended to reach the maximum dose. Some of them, they have multiple maintenance doses, and that's when we try the first maintenance dose, which is the lowest one. And then if the patient is losing weight, if they're happy with their energy, with the fact that they're actually exercising and seeing results, then I keep them on that dose. They don't have to actually increase it to the maximum dose.
One last question, Dr. Mais. Do you think we'll ever solve obesity without medication?
Oh, that's tricky, very tricky. The short answer to that, I don't think that we can cure obesity, unfortunately. And I try to be more optimistic than that, but the data and the research have shown the complexity of the disease. It's just not convincing for me that we're going to ever cure obesity. With the lifestyles that we have, with the abundance of food, with the exposure to all the disruptors in life, environmental, radiation, chemicals, all these things, it's way more than just me controlling what I put in my mouth.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm hoping and what I'm hopeful for is that we can probably prevent obesity from happening in a better fashion and in a much more efficient way than we did probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because of the revolution that's happening. We live in an era where things are fascinating and we need to leverage on the science that's evolving. And those medications are going to be integral parts of treating obesity and preventing disease, because we can now talk about these medications in terms of protecting the heart.
Yeah.
And we all know that cardiovascular disease is #1 killer in most of the countries in the world. So if I'm using a medication that's preventing someone from having their second heart attack that might be fatal, then I'm talking about a magical medication, or a medication that's integral in the healthcare system. So the short answer to that, I don't think we can cure it. I don't think we will solve the problem, but there's a lot of room in prevention. There's a lot of room for education and minimizing the problem, and hopefully reversing the numbers that we're seeing on the rise.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Dr. Mais. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Sam.